Rumors are flying through the taverns of the royal capital about a super strong kid who reportedly commands a Fenrir. The kid in the rumors is Yuki Kanzaki, who's currently wandering the city with Pochi, thinking that being a grown-up is a lot harder than it looks. His story actually started back in Japan with a literal bang, when he pushed a stranger out of the path of a speeding truck. That was the end for 33-year-old Yuki Kanzaki, an ordinary office worker who never expected his life to end like this. As the girl he saved broke down in tears, Yuki felt his vision starting to fade out. He thought back to his siblings he'd raised since their mother passed. Seeing them successful made him feel like he lived a fulfilling life. Suddenly, he wakes up in a bright white void, greeted by a kid in a toga who just casually waves and says, "Yo." The child identifies himself as God and confirms that Yuki did indeed die. God explains that because Yuki died helping a total stranger, he's been handpicked to be reborn in another world. The deity offers a reincarnation package with a powerful existence and a ton of points, which sounds pretty sketchy to Yuki. God goes full salesman, offering him cheats so he can be a legendary hero or start a harem. Yuki just gives him a flat, "No thanks," which leaves the god completely stunned. He explains he doesn't need cheats. He just wants a normal life where he can be himself and share a laugh with others. God thinks he's way too humble, but decides that giving him absolutely nothing would be unfair. He grants Yuki a strong body as a baseline gift before moving on to the final step. God pulls out a literal rocket launcher and starts a countdown, leaving Yuki wondering if he's actually being fired off. With a cheerful farewell, God pulls the trigger and blasts Yuki's soul into his next life. Yuki spirals through a cosmic vortex, hoping that living normally is actually possible after a divine launch like that. He wakes up in the middle of a lethal blizzard on a high mountain peak. To make things worse, he's currently a tiny, crying baby wrapped in a cloth. He's convinced he's going to freeze to death at this rate, despite God's promises. But strangely, he doesn't feel the cold. His strong body gift is already working as he starts to crawl through the snow. The local wildlife isn't as welcoming though, as a pack of glowing ice wolves surrounds him for a meal. Yuki closes his eyes and prepares for the worst, just hoping that being eaten alive won't hurt too much. Suddenly, a figure drops from the sky, commands the pack to be gone, and swings a blade. The entire pack is obliterated in a single strike, leaving Yuki amazed by how overpowered people are in this world. He's terrified the stranger will attack him next, but the figure just leans down and asks if he's all right. Despite the scar and the insane power, the stranger is surprisingly gentle as she picks Yuki up. Lucy wonders what a baby is doing out here, and decides she can't just leave him to freeze. They pass through a barrier into a hidden garden paradise, where a woman named Olympia greets them. Yuki is stunned by her beauty, wondering if Olympia is even human. Olympia explains that travelers from distant worlds sometimes appear here and asks for his name. Yuki tries his best to speak, but his toddler tongue can barely manage to say, "Kanzaki Yuki." She introduces herself as a spirit and identifies the hunter who saved him as Lucy. Yuki is deeply touched by their kindness, feeling more warmth from them than from the garden itself. Seeing that he's alone and homeless, Olympia gets a determined look in her eye. She pulls him into a big hug and declares that they're going to raise him together. Lucy is completely blindsided by how fast she jumped to that conclusion. Olympia points out that the world has been a mess since the Demon King released his miasma. She insists it's safer for him here, and Yuki realizes he would have died instantly without them. Lucy takes a moment to think it over, then agrees to do it for the child's sake. Olympia is thrilled, and Yuki looks up at Lucy, grateful for his new family. Olympia smiles warmly and tells him it's perfectly fine for him to stay here. Toddler Yuki is ecstatic, thinking to himself how lucky he is to have met these two. She offers him some food, and Yuki reflects on how, in his past life, he never really let himself lean on anybody. Sitting down for a meal with his new family, Yuki watches Olympia and Lucy and makes a silent vow to repay them someday. A year flies by, and a 4-year-old Yuki waves goodbye to Mom as he heads out for another day of growth. He's already showing off some pretty crazy agility for a toddler, jumping between rocks and realizing his new body is absolutely incredible. He pushes himself to keep training, knowing he can't just live off their kindness forever. But he ends up losing his footing. Lucy catches him before he can tumble and asks what he was doing trying to climb a cliff. Yuki admits he just wanted to see the world, but Lucy warns him that everything outside is choked with miasma. She explains that while Olympia's barrier keeps them safe, the beasts outside easily go berserk. Seeing his curiosity, Lucy offers to show him what lies beyond the barrier, just for today. Before he can even process the offer, she scoops him up, and they're moving so fast, the world becomes a blur. They come to a halt on a high ledge, leaving Yuki a bit dizzy from the speed. Lucy points out the surrounding peaks, explaining that this land was once the holy peak, Athos, a place overflowing with spirit power. But now, looking at the dark, jagged landscape swarming with monsters, it's known as the Demon Mountain. She describes the Athos that Olympia once loved, a beautiful, lush forest filled with life. Yuki notices the sad look in her eyes as she talks about what was lost.
That's when it hits him.
If he grows up and restores this mountain to its former glory, it would definitely make his new parents happy. Lucy is surprised by his ambition, but smiles and tells him that maybe, just maybe, he could actually do it. For the first time in either of his lives, Yuki has a real dream for the future. He isn't sure how he'll pull it off yet, but he's determined to make it happen someday. He resolves to restore the mountain, but his immediate goal is just getting strong enough to survive in this world. Deep in the dark woods, a pack of glowing-eyed ice wolves starts to move. They approach the shimmering edge of the spirit barrier. One of the wolves lets out a howl, and Olympia notices the disturbance at her barrier's edge. Back at the house, Yuki is busy practicing his sword swings until Olympia calls him in for lunch. Over a bowl of soup, Lucy notes that his movements are getting a lot sharper, and Yuki thanks his master for the training. He's still focused on his goal, restoring the holy peak Athos to the paradise it used to be. He asks Lucy how they can actually stop the miasma, and she tells him that for now, subjugating the monsters is the only way. She sets a goal for him, taking down 10 Shimofuri pseudo-drakes in a single night, and Yuki is ready to give it his all. Every day is filled with training under Lucy, because Yuki knows he wouldn't last a second outside without her level of skill. Olympia isn't exactly thrilled about it, complaining that Lucy is being way too strict on the poor kid. Lucy argues she's pacing him properly, but Yuki just peels back a bandage to show a scrape that's already completely healed. He gives Mom a big smile and tells her not to worry, but Olympia is still concerned, especially with a pack of ice wolves settling in so close to the barrier lately. After they finish eating, Lucy prepares to head out for a patrol circuit beyond the barrier. Yuki immediately asks if he can tag along, but Olympia just tells Lucy to go ahead. Lucy turns him down flat, telling him to stay home, subdue the weak beasts inside the barrier, and gather some herbs instead. Olympia warns him one last time not to step outside as Yuki runs off, calling back a quick, "Okay." As he hunts some small snake-like monsters, he wonders why the barrier lets anything in at all, but figures it just can't block the weaker ones. But his mind is still on the much stronger beasts outside. He reaches the edge of the barrier, and with his curiosity peaking, he finds it impossible to just stay put. Yuki's eyes go wide in shock as he spots a massive presence looming just ahead of him. It's a gargantuan ice wolf, and it looks incredibly dangerous. Yuki wonders if this beast is the reason the spirit barrier has been weakening lately. Suddenly, Lucy steps in, her expression stern as she orders the creature to be gone. Yuki watches the confrontation, noticing that this particular wolf seems completely different from the others he's seen. The massive beast doesn't back down, lunging at Lucy with a ferocious snarl. Lucy doesn't even flinch, meeting the wolf's charge with a swift, calculated strike. Yuki watches from the sidelines, clutching his chest as he hopes his mentor can handle the threat. Lucy stands her ground, telling the beast that its master, the Demon King, is dead, and it has no reason to keep fighting. She tells it to go home and stop bothering people, and as the wolf retreats, Yuki realizes just how scary the world outside can be. The large wolf stops at a distance, looking back with an expression that isn't quite as hostile as before. Against his better judgment, Yuki calls out to the creature, feeling a strange pull toward it. He approaches the beast cautiously, asking if it's all alone before offering it some of his food and water. To his surprise, the wolf actually eats. Yuki smiles, relieved to see the creature isn't just a mindless monster. The wolf continues to eat heartily, looking much less threatening as it finishes the meal. Its condition seems to improve by the second, almost as if the simple act of being fed is restoring its spirit. Yuki thinks to himself that the wolf feels surprisingly human in its reactions. He's genuinely glad to see it feeling better. He feels like they're sharing a connection, and it reminds him of a stray dog he wanted to rescue back in his old life in Japan but couldn't. He remembers seeing that puppy abandoned in the rain and still regrets that he wasn't in a position to take it home. He hopes that back then someone else was kind enough to pick the little guy up. He decides right then that if he had taken that dog in, he would have given it a simple classic name. That's it, he thinks. From now on, you're Pochi, he declares with a grin. The legendary beast lets out a happy woof in response. Suddenly, a status window pops up, showing that Yuki has gained the Tame skill and successfully bonded with the Fenrir. Memories and feelings from the wolf start flowing directly into his mind. Through their new bond, Yuki understands the wolf's pain, how it lost its purpose when the Demon King died and suffered from the miasma. He sees a vision of the wolf's former companions, now long gone, leaving it wandering the forest alone. The creature had even lost its entire pack, left with nowhere to go. It hadn't been trying to attack the barrier. It was just looking for a safe place to rest. All it really wanted was to run free through a healthy forest again, away from the corruption. Yuki reaches out and gently comforts the majestic creature, feeling its loneliness. He makes a promise to Pochi, telling him they'll restore this mountain to its beautiful form together. Then reality hits him. Bringing a giant, legendary beast home might get it killed by Lucy. He starts to panic, wondering how he's going to explain this. As if reading his mind, Pochi begins to glow with a bright, magical light. In an instant, the massive wolf shrinks down into a tiny, fluffy puppy. Yuki is absolutely floored by the transformation. The little pup starts licking his face, and Yuki can't help but laugh. You're so cute! That tickles! With the legendary Fenrir now in pocket-sized form, Yuki starts heading back to the house, practicing his commands along the way. He looks around and thinks that life like this might not be so bad. He bursts through the door, calling out for his master and mom. Lucy looks up from her seat, unimpressed, and asks what he's doing with that little mutt. Yuki begs to keep him, promising to take full responsibility, while Olympia looks on with a skeptical expression. Pochi tries his best to look non-threatening. Lucy sighs, thinking it'll be a hassle, but eventually agrees that it should be fine as long as Yuki stays by the pup's side. Yuki is over the moon that he pulled it off, but Lucy quickly ruins the vibe by pointing out that he followed her into the forest even though she told him to stay home. She tells him that from now on, his training is going to get a lot more serious since he'll be doing it together with that pup. Yuki can only offer a sheepish apology. 2 years of intense training pass by in a flash. Yuki and Pochi grow closer and stronger every single day. Now a bit older and more confident, Yuki stands before Olympia and Lucy, ready for the next step in his journey. He looks them in the eye and delivers the big news. He wants to leave the mountain. Pochi is right there by his side, ready for the adventure. He finds a carriage at the edge of the mountain path and asks the driver if it's heading to Tawanalite. The driver is shocked to see a kid out here alone. The driver shrugs, saying a fare is a fare, whether it's a kid or a dog, and tells them to hop in. Yuki is ecstatic to finally be on his way. While Yuki is busy celebrating, Pochi is busy staring down the strange, camel-like beast pulling the carriage. Yuki has to call him over before he picks a fight with their ride. Sitting on the carriage, Yuki clutches his bag, feeling the weight of the journey ahead. He looks at a small token, a reminder of where he started, and whispers to himself that he has to give this his all. The story shifts back to a few days earlier, when Yuki first broke the news of his departure to his foster parents. With a determined look, he tells them he's decided to leave the mountain. The announcement hits Olympia and Lucy like a ton of bricks. Olympia is genuinely bewildered, asking if he's really leaving, while Lucy can only remark on how incredibly sudden the decision feels. A heavy silence hangs in the air as Lucy continues with the chores, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in. Olympia tries to talk him out of it, pointing out that he's still just a little boy and could easily wait until he's older. But Yuki stands firm, explaining that with Pochi by his side, he's already been training hard and can handle the local monsters with ease. He acknowledges that while their home is a paradise protected by his mother's barrier, the world outside is dying under the miasma. It's a completely different reality that he can't ignore. Yuki makes sure they know his desire to leave isn't because he wants to get away from them. Quite the opposite, actually. He tells them straight up that he loves them both dearly. He explains that his real goal is to learn about the world as quickly as possible so he can find a way to get rid of the miasma for good. Seeing his mother's sadness, Yuki emphasizes that he doesn't want to wait for someone else to step up. He wants to be the one to do it himself. With a clear sense of purpose, he declares his dream. He's going to restore the mountains of Athos to the beautiful state they both used to love. That's why he can't stay behind. Moved by her son's selflessness and ambition, Olympia's eyes well up with tears as she admits that she wants to see a restored Athos too. She pulls him into a tight, emotional hug, finally accepting his choice to move on. Lucy looks on, silent, but acknowledging the moment. Lucy realizes there's no changing the boy's mind and tells him not to overdo it. Yuki nods, promising that even though he's setting out on his own, he knows he's still just a kid and will rely on adults whenever he's in over his head. He admits that he might fail or even want to quit at times, but despite the risks, his heart is set on going. Pochi stays right by his side, ready for whatever comes next. Lucy looks at him with newfound respect, admitting that Yuki has grown up into a fine young man without him even realizing it. He reminds the boy that even if they're apart, they'll always be family. Yuki gives them a bright, genuine smile, promising that he will always be their child, no matter how far he travels. For a brief moment, the three of them share a quiet, happy moment, solidifying the bond of their precious family before the big move. Lucy decides that if Yuki is going, he shouldn't go unprepared. He starts drafting a letter of introduction to an old acquaintance named Peter, who runs a helping hand business in the mining city of Tawanolite. Lucy explains that Tawanolite is a large city where Yuki can learn all sorts of useful skills. He also mentions that Pochi should go along, since the wolf pup is clearly attached to him. Yuki is thrilled that his companion can come along, hoisting Pochi into the air as they celebrate the news together. Lucy notes that the pup wouldn't follow anyone else anyway. He promises to include Pochi in the letter as well. Yuki is absolutely ecstatic, practically glowing with joy at the thought of their upcoming journey. Lucy tells him that they'll set a departure date as soon as they hear back from his friend. Yuki eagerly agrees, his excitement finally starting to outweigh his nerves. Looking back, Yuki realizes just how much he's learned over the last 2 years under Lucy's strict tutelage. Everything from hunting to the value of monster parts. He feels a mix of nerves and excitement as he prepares for the next chapter of his life. He reflects on his past life, where he always played it safe and held back for the sake of others. But this time, in this world, he's determined to live life to the fullest and face every challenge head-on. It's finally the day of departure. Yuki and Pochi are ready to leave home and see what the rest of the world has to offer. Olympia is taking it pretty hard, squishing Yuki in a goodbye hug, while Lucy asks if he's absolutely sure about this. Lucy keeps it practical, reminding the boy to keep a close eye on his map and his money at all times. Olympia hands over some fruit, crying about how much she wants to go with him, even though she knows she can't. Then Lucy gets dead serious, telling him that even if he gets jumped, he is not allowed to fight back for real. Yuki gets the hint. Basically, just run for it. With that settled, Lucy brings out a parting gift. It's a small, finely crafted dagger. She explains that since her father didn't have a sword to give a woman, she just borrowed this from his drawer before she left home herself. Yuki takes it with a bow, thanking his master for everything. It's time. Yuki climbs into the back of the carriage, taking one last look at the place he grew up. He gives a final wave to his family as the wheels start turning. Olympia and Lucy wave back, watching their little guy head off into the unknown. As the house fades into the distance, the reality starts to sink in. Yuki's feeling a bit lonely, but he knows he's got to give this his all. The carriage driver shouts back that they're officially on the way to Tawano Light. Yuki leans out the side to soak in the view, while the driver warns him to stay inside so he doesn't fall out. They're deep in the boondocks now, where the driver says it's usually just travelers or Lord Granadas out this way. The driver starts hyping up Granadas, calling him the great hero who defeated the Demon King. Apparently, this mysterious masked warrior appeared out of nowhere and was strong enough to scatter beasts alone. Yuki is impressed. Hearing stories like that just makes Yuki want to train harder so he can become a strong adult himself. He wonders what kind of encounters are waiting for him ahead. The night sky is full of magic as they keep moving, and Yuki points out the beautiful lights to Pochi. The carriage is pretty packed with other travelers, everyone just trying to get through the long ride. Eventually, the movement of the carriage lulls everyone to sleep, including a very tired Yuki and his wolf companion. Sun's up, and the driver wakes him up to let him know they've finally arrived. Yuki mentions he slept the whole way, and the driver is just surprised they didn't get ambushed by any wolf packs for once. Yuki hops off, his eyes sparkling as he takes in the sight of the city. Welcome to the big city. It's loud, crowded, and way bigger than anything he's ever seen. People are already staring at the kid with the massive backpack, but Yuki isn't sticking around to chat with strangers. He checks his map, looking for the meeting spot where he's supposed to find a guy named Mr. Peter. He finally spots it, the Good Kids Hall. But when he steps inside, he's not met by a receptionist. Instead, there's a mysterious girl in priestess robes just lying motionless on the floor. Tawano Light is a busy town with cobblestone streets and stone buildings around every corner. Yuki and Pochi walk into a back alley and find two men cornering a girl in white. The kid recognizes the thugs immediately. They're the same suspicious guys from the carriage ride. The men are trying to rob the girl while she's down, but Yuki isn't about to let them get away with it. Bald thug Mighty takes a swing at the brat, but his massive fist hits nothing but air. The boy dodges the strike with zero effort, making the huge attacker look like he's moving in slow motion. The thugs keep swinging wildly while the boy effortlessly weaves through every single punch. Compared to the intense training sessions with his mothers, this street fight feels more like a light stroll. A man in a dark cloak suddenly appears and orders his subordinates to stop laying hands on a child. Abel apologizes for the trouble, explaining that the girl likely just ran out of mana. The group walks away, leaving Yuki to deal with the aftermath of the alley confrontation. The girl groans and begins to stir as Yuki leans in to check if she's all right. She sits up, completely disoriented, wondering where she is and how she ended up in an alleyway. She suddenly feels sick, which is apparently a common symptom of severe mana depletion. Yuki offers her a hand, asking if she's able to stand up yet. He transfers some of his own mana to her, a high-level technique that shocks the girl. Yuki introduces himself as Kanzaki Yuki, playing off his rare abilities as no big deal. The girl introduces herself as Sakura Halcyon, looking much better now that her energy is restored. Gracious for the save, Sakura asks if there's anything she can do to pay him back for his help. The boy just wants directions to the town's famous Peter statue. As they walk through the market, Sakura is impressed by how mature and reliable the boy seems. Sakura starts calling herself trash for collapsing, but the boy distracts her by asking about the town. She explains how a legendary man named Peter transformed this barren land into a thriving city. The secret to the town's success is Avanium, a spirit stone that serves as a powerful energy source. Sakura gets dramatic with her explanation, acting out the story like she's on a stage. They finally reach the statue of Peter, the man who built everything Yuki sees. Yuki notices a man standing nearby who looks exactly like the statue, hat and all. The man gives them a friendly wave, noticing their confused stares. It's Peter himself, and he greets Yuki by name as soon as they get close. He welcomes the boy to town, mentioning he's already heard plenty about him from Lucy. Yuki is baffled that a legendary hero can walk through a crowd without anyone paying him any mind. Peter scoops up the boy and Pochi, acting surprisingly casual for a local legend. He invites Sakura to stop by his home too, wanting to thank the person who guided his guest. The group makes their way through the busy town square toward Peter's place. They reach a building with a handyman sign, which serves as Peter's shop. Peter welcomes them inside and tells them to make themselves comfortable after the long journey. He offers some fresh bread, and Sakura realizes she's been starving this entire time. Suddenly, a girl with a long braid comes rushing in, yelling at her dad for not waking her up. She stops in her tracks when she realizes Sakura is a novice saintess from the Musion order. Hearing the name of her order makes Sakura panic and run out the door without a word. Peter explains that the girls' church has a lot of complicated issues that are difficult to deal with. He introduces his daughter, Akino, who will be working alongside Yuki from now on. Akino welcomes Yuki and Pochi to the shop, telling them she'll be in their care from today on. Peter is relieved to see Yuki looks like a pretty normal child, despite Lucy's warnings that he was quite a handful. He explains that while Lucy taught the boy everything she could, there wasn't anyone else around to learn from deep in the mountains. Akino lists the various requests the shop handles, from roof repairs to cleaning up dangerous miasma pools. The boy is eager to help with everything, hoping he might eventually learn how to clear the miasma from the Athos range. He asks to be taught everything they know, and the two are more than happy to have him on the team. Peter reflects on how Lucy and Olympia were rarely affectionate until Yuki came into their lives and tied them together. The boy is surprised by the realization, though he's clearly proud of the mothers who raised him. To Yuki, those two are special, and he wants to find a way to eliminate the miasma just to make them happy. If he succeeds, he imagines they'll be overjoyed and give him all the praise he could ever want. Peter and Akino agree that it's time for them to start working hard together as a group. Suddenly, a man in a suit bursts through the door, yelling about some massive trouble at his home. Mr. Hilk is desperate for help because his family manor has transformed into a monster mansion. They arrive at the eerie, massive manor, which is currently shrouded in a thick, stagnant fog. Yuki is stunned by the sight of a house that's literally become a haunt for dangerous monsters. Peter explains that a miasma pool is negative energy left over from the Demon King that accumulates in a single space. The client is horrified that his furniture has turned into monsters, which sounds like a total nightmare to clean. Since it's the house he was raised in, he'd rather save it than burn it down and lose all those memories. Peter asks the kid if he's ready to take on this manor as his very first official job. Yuki wonders if he'll just make everyone anxious instead, but he's not about to back away from the challenge. If they've asked for his help, he's determined to give it everything he's got to get the job done. Akino gears up with her mask and glasses, ready to lead the charge on this big cleanup. She lays out the plan: improve ventilation, defeat the beasts, and clear out the monsters born from the miasma. Everyone masks up and prepares to dive headfirst into the thick, dizzying miasma pool. Yuki starts sweeping away the dark energy, surprised at just how easy it feels to clear it out. He throws open the dusty shutters to let some much-needed fresh air into the dark hallways. The team gets to work scrubbing the floors and clearing away ancient cobwebs from the corners. Slowly but surely, the rooms begin to look like a clean, normal home again. Suddenly, Yuki hears a familiar voice echoing from deeper within the manor. A sharp scream rings out, and the boy doesn't hesitate for a second before rushing toward the sound. Someone is trapped in a back room, and the miasma is dangerously thick in this part of the house. He bursts in to find a swarm of angry, floating book monsters circling a terrified victim. Aquino explains that libraries are notorious for becoming miasma pools and spawning these book-type monsters. Yuki is focused on finding whoever is trapped and getting them out as quickly as possible. He finds Sakura huddled on the floor, surrounded by possessed books that are ready to attack. One monster lunges forward with its pages flapping, but Yuki is already moving to intervene. The boy decides to try something a bit reckless to clear the room in one go. With a powerful jump, he prepares to launch a strike that'll scatter the floating monsters. His kick hits with enough force to send the possessed books flying across the library. He lands perfectly in front of the girl, shielding her from the rest of the aggressive books. Yuki reaches out a hand to Sakura, asking if she's hurt or needs help getting up. She's shaken, but okay, and he insists they get out of here before more monsters show up. Sakura is incredibly grateful to the boy, telling him with a bow that he truly saved her back there. Aquino is more concerned about Yuki's health, asking if he's really okay since he's not wearing a protective mask in the thick miasma. Back at the shop, Peter is relieved to see the whole group made it out of the stagnant manor in one piece. Sakura feels much better after some rest, and thanks Aquino for sharing her mana to help her recover. Yuki is curious about why she was at such a dangerous place alone, and Sakura reveals she had others with her. She explains that her seniors from the Order were trying to capture monsters, but they used her as bait because of her high mana. Yuki and Aquino are stunned by the cruelty of her supposed comrades using her as live bait for beasts. Aquino notes that trainees like Sakura are often forced into these dangerous jobs just to pay the massive tributes their order demands. Sakura shares that she's the 7th daughter of a minor noble family and joined the order to help with their struggling finances. She dreamed of becoming a saintess who could heal the sick and purify the world, but her own clumsiness held her back. She truly wanted to be useful to people, but the burden of the tribute quota was more than she could handle. She even broke into her parents' parting gift to make the payments. But now, even that meager stash has run out. Peter mentions the harsh rumor that those who can't pay the tribute are forced to live as trainees for the rest of their lives. Sakura hangs her head in shame, feeling as though she's worth less than the dust packed into the cracks of the stairs. She tells Yuki how happy she was to be saved by him, even though she feels completely useless. The boy grabs her hand and shouts that she's not useless at all, surprising her with his sudden intensity. He reminds her that she stayed with him the entire time and even tried to buy time for her seniors at the manor. To him, someone who can act so selflessly for the sake of others is an absolutely wonderful person. Sakura is stunned into silence, her eyes widening as she looks at the young boy's sincere expression. Aquino and Peter watch as Yuki tells her not to talk so harshly about herself anymore. He offers a soft, knowing smile, telling her that he gets it. He understands how she feels. Yuki knows all too well how easy and comfortable it can be to slip into the mindset of being someone like me. He wipes away her tears as she thanks him, her voice trembling with relief. The boy wonders if there's anything else he can do to help her truly regain her footing. He asks Peter if they can hire Sakura to help clean the manor, hoping the work will restore her confidence. Peter is happy to help and offers her a reward coin, which she accepts with newfound enthusiasm. The whole team gathers their gear, including mops and buckets, and prepares to return to the Hilk mansion. They arrive at the manor with a shared determination to clean the place thoroughly and efficiently. Aquino explains that they'll start with the back rooms, where the miasma is known to be the thickest. Yuki notices her special glasses and asks what they're for, and she explains they let her visualize the miasma. Through the lenses, she's shocked to see that the miasma is being purified just by Yuki standing near it. Sakura agrees that it's much easier to breathe when they're close to him, making the work a lot more bearable. Aquino wonders if his mysterious power comes from some kind of special water infused by the Great Spirit. Yuki remembers the delicious fruit and water he consumed every day in the mountains, realizing she might be right. Aquino rallies the group, telling them to get back to it and make the entire manor shine like new. Everyone dives into the cleaning. Even Pochi gets involved, pulling sheets across the floor to help out. Yuki gets down on his hands and knees to scrub the tiles, determined to do his part. Sakura is working just as hard, her focus absolute as she scrubs every inch of the floor. The boy watches her with a soft smile, thinking she's a truly serious and good-hearted person. Suddenly, Sakura spots a giant spider monster creeping along the wall and shouts a frantic warning to him. Without a second thought, Yuki swats the massive monster away with his bare hand, as if it were a simple fly. The girls are completely stunned that he handled it bare-handed, but to him, the spiders in the mountains were way bigger. Akino sees how exhausted Sakura is and kindly offers to share some of her mana to help her recover. Feeling much better after the boost, Sakura is ready to tackle the remaining rooms alongside Akino and Yuki. The group reaches the entrance hall and gazes up at a massive, cobweb-encrusted chandelier infested with giant spiders. Yuki doesn't hesitate for a second, telling the girls he'll take care of the high-altitude pests himself. With a series of lightning-fast acrobatic strikes, the boy effortlessly clears the spider nest from the chandelier in mid-air. Watching from below, Akino tells Pochi just how amazing his master is as they watch Yuki work. Yuki spends the next few minutes meticulously polishing the crystal fixture until it sparkles like new. With a final cheer, the group celebrates the completion of their massive cleaning project as the manor finally shines. Mr. Hilk is overwhelmed with gratitude, thanking the team for restoring his late parents' home to its former glory. Outside the shop later that day, Peter accepts the final payment from the incredibly satisfied client. Yuki and Sakura are both happy to see that their hard work brought such a genuine smile to Mr. Hilk's face. Peter hands out the pay bags, explaining that a small portion of Yuki's share was set aside for his rent and meals. Yuki is shocked to receive his very first paycheck, while Sakura is moved to tears by the generous amount she was given. Peter then reveals that they reported Sakura as the sole person responsible for the manor's purification to the church. Sakura is stunned by the gesture, but Peter explains that his group prefers to work quietly and without official credit. He tells her that as long as they can help those who rely on them, having it recorded as her achievement is plenty. Peter takes the opportunity to ask Sakura if she'd be willing to continue helping their group out with jobs from time to time. Akino adds her thanks, telling Sakura that they were only able to finish the request so quickly because she was there. Overwhelmed by the feeling of being needed for the first time, Sakura tearfully begs to keep working with them. The next day, Yuki takes a stroll through the bustling town market, curious about what the local vendors have for sale. He stops at a stall selling delicate clockwork dolls that are powered by sunlight, admiring the intricate craftsmanship. Finding a pair of dolls that reminds him of his mother and father, Yuki decides to spend his first paycheck on them. He hugs the package tight, wondering if his parents would be happy to see how much he's accomplished in this new world. Akino finds him and asks if he found something good, and Yuki gives her a bright, happy nod as Pochi trots along beside them. Akino spots a grilled meat stall and points it out to Yuki. The smell alone is enough to make their stomachs growl, and even Pochi lets out a hungry woof. She decides to splurge on a big one as a treat for Yuki's first job, and to celebrate his arrival in town. She tells him to wait there while she goes to buy it. Yuki reflects on the food he's had since coming to this world. While Olympia's fruit was the best, everything else was just bland soup and dusty bread. He's incredibly excited to finally try some fresh bone-in meat. When Akino returns, he's ready and waiting with Pochi. Akino hands over the skewers, including a small piece for the pup. Pochi wastes no time digging in. They sit down to eat while it's still hot. Yuki finds it delicious, though the portion is a bit smaller than he expected. Akino explains that fresh meat is rare because the miasma makes it hard to raise animals. Most of the land quickly becomes a miasma pool unless it's in specific areas. Determined, Yuki resolves to work as hard as possible until the miasma finally clears. He finishes his snack with a new sense of purpose. Nearby, two women in religious habits walk by, gossiping about a noble who purified a miasma pool. Yuki notices they're wearing the same clothes as Sakura. They complain about how easy the work must have been, suspecting the church leader is only in a good mood because of the report. One of them wonders how Sakura even managed it. They assume she just used her family name to pull strings and had someone else do the job. Yuki watches them walk away, feeling the sting of their words. Akino realizes they were talking about Sakura. She's glad Sakura's efforts reached the church, but the negative talk clearly bothers her. Yuki finds it unpleasant that Sakura is being targeted by envy just because of her noble background, especially since she worked so hard. He wonders if there's a way for her to be more properly recognized. Meanwhile, back at their home, Lucy and Olympia look out over the landscape. Lucy asks Olympia how much longer she plans to stay there. Olympia mentions the Spirit Telescope and how the Museon Church has monopolized all the sacred springs. Lucy thinks about the church and remembers Yuki. She sighs his name, her thoughts clearly on her son's well-being. She tells Olympia she's going out for a bit. When asked where, she simply says she's going to check on Yuki's situation. Her expression is serious as she focuses on her son's current state. She's not just a hunter. She's a protective mother. Cut back to the present, where a carriage travels through a field. Yuki and Pochi are inside, enjoying the view as they head toward their next destination. Yuki notes how different the scenery is compared to when they first arrived in Tawanolite. The driver informs them that they're getting close to the village. Akino asks Sakura to explain the request to everyone before they arrive. Sakura agrees and prepares to outline today's helping job. She explains that a miasma pool has formed in the mountain next to Tuka village, causing ferocious red tusk boars to appear in large numbers. A skilled local is currently driving them back, but he's reaching his limit. They aren't there to exterminate the beasts, but to build protective fences to defend the fields. Akino mentions that Tawanolite is arranging for actual beast hunters to handle the situation permanently. For now, they're just a stopgap measure. She brings up the Brooks hunting party, who have been active since the Demon King era and specialize in handling red tusk boars. Sakura's eyes light up at the mention of Lord Brooks. Sakura goes on about how Lord Brooks even stood shoulder to shoulder with the legendary Granada Squad. She considers him a true hero. Yuki listens to her fangirling, wondering if he'll ever meet such a legendary figure himself. He's impressed by the scale of the legends in this world. Sakura is just happy to be able to help everyone. She smiles warmly, her earlier troubles seemingly forgotten for the moment. They finally see Toka village on the horizon. Suddenly, they spot a massive pack of red tusk boars charging through the area. Pochi gets excited and jumps right out of the carriage. Yuki shouts in surprise, calling after the pup as he races toward the beasts. The group watches in shock as the small pup charges headlong into the massive pack. The driver and the girls can only stare as Pochi vanishes into the dust cloud. Everyone braces for the worst, but they see a flurry of movement within the herd. Something is definitely happening inside that chaotic mess of boars. The carriage comes to a halt as they watch Pochi emerge from the other side. He lets out a triumphant bark, looking completely unfazed. Behind him, a whole pile of boars has been knocked unconscious. Yuki rushes over and scoops up Pochi, praising him for being such an amazing boy. Suddenly, another boar charges from the side. Yuki notices someone nearby struggling to hold their ground against the beast. A muscular, bald man is trying to fight off the boar with a pickaxe. He grunts in frustration, but the creature is putting up a serious fight. Yuki doesn't hesitate and rushes in. He leaps through the air with incredible speed, heading straight for the charging monster. A powerful kick connects, sending the boar flying away. Yuki lands smoothly and asks the man if he's all right, showing off his natural agility. The man stares in disbelief, recognizing Yuki immediately. He's stunned to see the brat from before showing up in his home village. He tells everyone to back away, but the group caught up. Akino wonders if they're even needed if Yuki and Pochi can handle things themselves. Yuki insists on setting up the fences. The man, Mighty, is impressed but confused. He asks why a group consisting of a kid, some women, and an old guy was sent as beast hunters. Mighty explains that he returned home after losing his job in Tawanolite. Yuki realizes this is the guy who tried to rob them on the road earlier. Mighty spots a familiar figure and shouts out to Abel, surprised to see him in the village. Abel looks back with his usual stoic expression. He's joined by another one of their associates who's just as surprised by the reunion. Mighty is shocked to learn they've all been fired. Abel shuts down his complaints, reminding him that this mess is what happens when he tries to handle things on his own. Yuki watches the drama unfold between the former thugs, thinking about how messy this situation has suddenly become. Even Pochi seems to be judging the awkward vibes. Seeing the adults argue without making any progress, Yuki realizes he's the only one who can actually step in and settle things. He speaks up, asking them all to just let him sort out the situation before things spiral any further. Pochi lets out a supportive bark, which surprisingly helps ease the tension. The kid's confidence is actually super effective. Abel explains they usually only target wealthy travelers for donations and never meant to harm a church trainee. He orders his men to apologize immediately. Mighty gives a sincere apology, but Sakura is too kind to hold a grudge. She's actually grateful because the encounter led to Yuki saving her. Akino isn't letting them off that easy, though. She tells them to quit the highway robbery and start working honestly if they want to stay out of trouble. She shows off their new defense tool, a net rope laced with scrap avanium that vibrates to keep the boars away from the fields. The net glows as she demonstrates it. Mighty and the villagers are genuinely blown away by how effective the tech seems to be. The villagers are stunned that such a young boy could come up with a brilliant plan that actually works. Yuki modestly explains he just suggested the idea based on electric fences from his previous life, while Akino did the real magic to make it functional. With the plan confirmed, Akino rallies everyone to start installing the traps immediately to secure the perimeter. The entire village gets to work, hauling lumber and setting up the glowing defense line through the night. Even Yuki and Pochi are pitching in. Mighty is putting in some serious work when Sakura approaches to check on his progress. She uses her magic to help him, and Mighty is stunned by the sudden burst of energy. He feels like he could keep working for days. Mighty asks why she's being so nice after they tried to rob her. Sakura just smiles, saying she's not scared because she knows he's decided to change. He tells her she's way too soft-hearted, but thinks she'll be an amazing saint one day. As night falls, the group begins the night watch. Yuki suggests they dim the lights so they don't attract any more beasts, urging everyone to get some proper rest. Mighty is impressed by how much the kid knows about mountain life. Yuki just smiles, reminding him that the mountains were his first home. By morning, the work is finally done. Everyone gathers around the outdoor tables to rest and share a hard-earned meal. Abel approaches Yuki and asks for a seat. He wants to apologize once more for the trouble his subordinates caused on the road. He tells Yuki that he's decided to leave his men behind in the village so they can live a stable, honest life. Yuki is surprised that Abel isn't staying with them, but Abel insists he has his own path to follow. Abel reveals his eyes are special. They allow him to see a person's latent potential and true abilities. He knows his men have finally found a place where they belong and will be fine without him. Yuki just nods along, chalking it up to complicated adult stuff. Abel calls over Mighty and his partner to break the news of his departure. He makes it official. They're parting ways right here. He wants them to stay and use their strength for the village instead. The two men are stunned and start chasing after the departing wagon, unable to believe he's actually leaving. They ask why he's doing this after everything they've been through. Abel tells them that life is in the past, and they have an important place to stay now. He points out how much happier and more relaxed they look here compared to their rough days in the city. Abel pulls the curtain on the wagon, telling them they finally have a home to go back to. He doesn't have such a place himself. He gives one final piece of advice. Use that strength for their hometown. Yuki and Pochi watch him pull away, disappearing into the distance. Yuki and Pochi watch as the villagers walk away, the silence hanging heavy after Abel's departure. The bald thug sighs, noting that Abel really is gone, while Peter admits they even let the kids see them at a pretty shameful moment. Seeing the boy's somber expression, the muscular man gives Yuki a reassuring pat on the head, telling him it's all right. He promises that if they just keep doing their best, the three of them will definitely meet again someday, before shifting focus back to the work at hand. Suddenly, Peter and Akino come sprinting toward them, their voices frantic as they call out for the boy. Akino is completely out of breath, her face pale as she delivers the terrifying news that Sakura has vanished. She explains that they shared a room at the inn, but when she woke up this morning, the bed was empty and her friend was nowhere to be found. Peter adds that his father found Sakura's staff abandoned behind the building, and no matter how much they search, there's no sign of her. Yuki's stomach drops as a bad feeling takes hold, realizing that someone like Sakura would never just leave her important staff lying around. A few hours earlier, the saintess in training had woken up well before dawn, still rubbing the sleep from her eyes. She gave herself a few quick slaps to wake up, determined to work hard for the villagers today. But her morning routine was interrupted by a presence, and she turned to see a tall, armored man standing in the doorway. She recognized him as Muson and assumed he was there for monster subjugation, offering to introduce him to the locals. The man's response was cold and immediate, a blunt strike that caught the girl completely off guard. The knight loomed over her, muttering about a self-righteous apprentice and a script he was following for his employer. As she lost consciousness, her last thoughts were of Yuki, leaving her staff behind as she was dragged away. Back in the present, Yuki looks at the staff, hearing the echoes of a desperate plea for help. He turns to Pochi, asking if the little fox can pick up Sakura's scent to track where they took her. The search parties continue to shout across the fields, but their calls go unanswered. Panic flares anew as a massive plume of smoke rises from the mountain, and the villagers realize a forest fire has broken out. Yuki stares at the black clouds, remembering a lesson from his master, Lucy, about a specific type of diversion. He realizes it's flushing smoke, a calculated tactic used to drive monsters down from the mountains and straight into human settlements. The realization hits the villagers hard. The monsters aren't just fleeing. They're being funneled right into the heart of the village. Peter immediately takes charge, shouting for the children to be evacuated, while the others scramble to reinforce the fences. They know they can't win a direct fight, but they're determined to buy enough time for everyone else to escape. Yuki watches them, wishing his master were there to help, when Pochi suddenly starts to bark and glow with a strange light. A flood of information rushes into his mind as he realizes he's hearing the fox's true voice through a mental link. He asks the spirit if he's finally allowed to use his full power, and the creature gives a resounding confirmation. In a burst of light, the tiny pet transforms, growing into a massive, majestic white wolf that towers over the boy. The giant wolf lets out a powerful howl before gently scooping Yuki up and placing him on its back. Pochi tells his partner to hold on tight, his expression fierce and ready for the coming battle. The ground trembles as the first of the red fang boars barrel down the slope, flanked by a pack of menacing black wolves. The villagers see more shadows moving toward them from the other side of the settlement, their fear mounting. A massive group of black wolves charges into the village, their snarling maws and glowing eyes promising total chaos. The men brace for the impact, but they're left stunned when the wolves ignore them entirely. Instead of attacking the humans, the black wolves crash into the red fang boars, and the bald thug asks if Yuki is actually some kind of monster tamer. The boy clarifies that it's not quite like that, while his mount nudges him to let him know they have a lead on the missing girl. Seeing the boy has a way to help, the muscular man tells him to go find Sakura while they handle the defense here. Yuki nods, his eyes full of determination as he tells Pochi he's ready to go. The giant wolf clears the perimeter fence in a single effortless leap, leaving Peter and Akino staring in disbelief. Pochi blurs into motion, his speed so intense that Yuki can barely keep his eyes open as the landscape becomes a streak of gray. He grips the wolf's fur, hoping they can reach Sakura before it's too late, as they race deeper into the smoke-filled forest. Yuki rides atop the giant wolf, his gaze fixed forward as he hopes for Sakura's safety. The boy notes that the smoke is getting thicker, and even Pochi seems to be struggling with the heavy scent of the flushing fire. Pochi lets out a low growl, and Yuki thanks him, telling him to wait here while he goes ahead alone. He calls out into the dense woods, but only silence and the sound of rustling leaves answer his desperate search. His heart leaps as he finally spots a familiar figure lying motionless on the forest floor. It's Sakura. Yuki rushes to her side, frantically checking if she's all right, but his relief is cut short by the arrival of a group of armed men. The boy stands over his friend, eyeing the armored intruders with suspicion, as he feels a bad vibe radiating from them. The men laugh at the apprentice who came looking for his friend, and one of them lunges forward, declaring that Yuki is going to sleep too. The knight's punch connects with nothing but air as the kid blurs into motion, ducking and weaving through their clumsy attacks with ease. With a sharp heave-ho, Yuki hoists the unconscious girl onto his back and prepares to make a break for it. He manages to grab her, but he knows they're in a tight spot, as the leader of the group watches them with a cold, calculating gaze. The boy takes off into the high grass, knowing they have to run for their lives before the armored men can corner them. Thick smoke billows through the forest canopy, obscuring everything and making the rescue mission even more dangerous. One of the knights sneers, wondering if the brat really thinks he can get away while carrying such a heavy load. Yuki stands his ground, shielding his friend as he declares that he won't let anyone take her. The knight is unimpressed, clenching his fist and promising to put the kid to sleep right then and there. Just as the tension reaches its peak, a new figure emerges from the smoke. A tall warrior with a confident smirk and a familiar white cloak. Yuki's face lights up with joy and disbelief as he recognizes his master, Lucy, standing before them. The armored leader freezes, his eyes widening in recognition as he asks why someone like her is even here. The master stands tall, her presence alone enough to shift the air in the clearing as she stares down the intruders. She looks at the men with pure disgust, calling them trash for laying hands on a child. Yuki's mind is blown as he realizes his master is the legendary hero Granadas, a revelation that leaves him starstruck. He's left in total shock, wondering how he was raised by someone so famous, while Lucy tells him to step back with the girl. The master addresses the leader as Brooks, noting that he hasn't changed a bit, despite his arrogant mercenary king title. She mocks his pathetic attempts to look big, stating that the truly strong ones were the ones who didn't survive the Demon Lord era. Lucy draws her blade with blinding speed, her movements a fluid dance of lethal intent. She looks down at her sword, blood staining the ground as she recalls those who actually gave their lives in the past. The legendary hero mentions the rumor she's heard about Brooks's group ganging up to hunt monsters and extorting people for rewards. She asks if this latest stunt, kidnapping a church apprentice, was also part of his big plans. Brooks snaps, shouting for the washed-up retiree to shut up and stay off the stage. He bares his teeth in a savage grin, declaring that his era has finally come at long last. He lunges forward with a roar, ordering Lucy to stay in the shadows where she belongs, while she watches him with a bored expression. The two blades clash in a shower of sparks, but the master easily parries the heavy strike without breaking a sweat. Before Brooks can even recover, she's already behind him, her movements too fast for the human eye to follow. She delivers a casual but devastating strike that sends the mercenary king crashing into the dirt. Brooks stares at her in disbelief, his arrogance completely shattered by the overwhelming difference in their power. Yuki watches the fight, his eyes wide as he realizes just how terrifyingly strong his master actually is. He looks at the fallen knight and thinks back to how he took down a pack of ice wolves in one blow, realizing that definitely wasn't normal. Lucy looks down at her defeated opponent, stating there's no front or back to a stage, and that leeching off others is no way to live. She sheathes her blade and turns away from the pathetic display, telling Brooks not to show kids something so shameful. The master offers a kind smile to her student, apologizing for keeping him waiting and suggesting they finally head home. Back at the village plaza, The sounds of celebration and relief ring out as the crisis is officially over. A village man cheers loudly, declaring that this red fang boar is the very last one as the crowd gathers around their hard-won prize. Aquino waves frantically to Peter, pointing out the success of the hunt as the rest of the villagers celebrate in the background. The relief is palpable as everyone cheers for a job well done, finally safe from the threat of the marauding beasts. A giant boar is firmly secured in a heavy-duty net, exactly as the villagers had planned for their defense. Yuki and Lucy make their triumphant return to the village with Pochi trailing behind, greeted by the cheers of the grateful residents. Peter and the others rush out to meet them, shocked to see the legendary Captain Granadas herself has come to their aid. The villagers can hardly believe their eyes, whispering in awe as they realize they're in the presence of the great hero. As night falls, the celebration truly begins, with a massive boar roasting over a roaring bonfire in the center of the plaza. Mugs are raised high in a toast to their survival, and the unexpected help from a living legend. Sakura watches Yuki with starry eyes, overwhelmed with gratitude for the boy and the legendary hero who saved her. Yuki checks on Sakura one more time as Aquino calls out to them, announcing that the main course is finally ready to serve. Aquino presents the feast, a whole roast red fang boar, and encourages everyone to eat as much as they want. Yuki and Sakura dive in, their faces lighting up as they savor the perfectly browned, juicy meat. The two kids enjoy the meal, though Yuki can't help but notice that the salt is a little on the light side. He finds himself craving that rich, junky seasoning from his previous life, his resolve to find those flavors again reaching a new peak. Nearby, Lucy and Peter sit together on a bench, sharing a quiet moment away from the boisterous crowd. Peter laughs as he talks about his daughter, while Lucy notes that the young girl seems to practically ooze good fortune. Peter credits their survival to Yuki's presence, still baffled by the incredible potential hidden within the young prodigy. Lucy admits she's also surprised by how quickly the children are growing and changing right before her eyes. Yuki approaches them with a couple of mugs, dutifully checking to make sure his master and Peter are staying hydrated during the party. Lucy pulls Yuki aside for a quick chat, marveling at how much he's managed to improve in such a short amount of time. She gives his head a supportive pat, praising his efforts as Yuki modestly insists he's just doing his best. The master gives him a warm smile, reassuring him that his dedication is exactly what she wants to see. She advises him that using his strength for the sake of others is the mark of true power, and that he should fight seriously from now on. Changing the subject, Lucy asks Peter for an update on his investigation into the Myuzion Order. Peter explains the grim reality they uncovered. The Order has been extorting outrageous tribute payments from its subordinates. The situation is even darker than they first suspected, a realization that leaves the group in a somber mood despite the festivities. Yuki is impressed by the adults' initiative, realizing they've been working behind the scenes this whole time to protect the peace. Lucy asks to borrow Yuki for a little longer, planning their next move against the corrupt religious organization. She decides to head to the Myuzion Order's Twilight branch, telling Yuki to bring Sakura along as they prepare to face the extortion head-on. The scene shifts to the imposing architecture of the Myuzion Order's branch under the cover of night. A nervous nun greets them at the entrance, wondering what could have brought the unusual group to their doors so late. Lucy leads the way into the grand hall, Yuki and a very full-looking Sakura following close behind her. The bishop is nearly jolted out of his seat by Lucy's sudden and commanding arrival as she makes their presence known. Standing before the high official, Lucy formally requests a moment of his time to discuss some very serious business. The bishop looks down at them with a cold, dismissive expression, clearly not pleased by the interruption. While the adults square off, Yuki's attention is caught by a nearby fountain, a strange sense of nostalgia washing over him as he looks at it. In the grand cathedral hall, the tension mounts as Lucy prepares to present her case against the Order's corrupt practices. Lucy cuts straight to the point, demanding that the bishop return all the extorted funds to the mistreated saintesses. The bishop goes on a sanctimonious rant, claiming they are the true heirs of the spirits and that their high costs are necessary to fight the miasma. He tells them to mind their own business, while the surrounding nuns murmur about calling for help to drive the outsiders away. With a smug sneer, The bishop asks if they really think the Great Spirit would allow such an outrage, while Yuki realizes things are about to get ugly. Lucy looks the bishop dead in the eye, asking what he thinks the Great Spirit would actually say about his behavior. The bishop tries to cut her off, telling her to hurry up and leave. But a sudden change in the air makes him stop short. Without warning, the water in the cathedral's fountain begins to glow and swirl into a violent, shimmering vortex. A piercing, crystalline sound rings through the grand hall, forcing everyone to cover their ears as the atmosphere grows heavy. From the middle of the glowing mist, the elegant silhouette of a woman begins to form, her presence radiating pure power. Olympia, the Great Spirit herself, fully manifests and wastes no time calling out the bishop for his blatant greed and corruption. The sight is nothing short of a miracle, leaving Yuki in absolute awe as he watches the divine figure float before them. Terrified, the bishop realizes this is the first time the Great Spirit has descended since the era of the Demon Lord. Olympia promises her favor to those truly faithful to the world, while the bishop can only press his forehead to the floor and beg for mercy. Lucy reveals that she asked Olympia to help out with the investigation into the Order's shady dealings. Sakura is completely mesmerized by the sight, her hands clasped together as she witnesses the Great Spirit's grace firsthand. Turning her gaze toward Yuki, Olympia calls him her beloved child and tells the bishop to be extra kind to him. The bishop is absolutely floored. The idea that the Great Spirit has a beloved child is a revelation he never saw coming. Olympia gives Sakura a gentle, knowing smile, noting how well she and the beloved child seem to be getting along. Switching back to her stern judge persona, Olympia officially hands off the bishop's punishment to her chosen messenger, Lucy. Lucy is more than happy to take over, telling the bishop to shut up and start talking about his associate, Brooks. Before she leaves, Olympia asks Sakura for her name and asks the young lady to take good care of Yuki in the future. Every member of the Musion Order present bows as low as they can, swearing to act only according to the Great Spirit's will from now on. As her time in this form runs out, Olympia looks a bit frustrated that she can't just give Yuki a proper hug. With a final, lonely cry that she'll miss him, the Great Spirit dissolves back into the mist, leaving Yuki and Sakura watching the empty air. The church is left in a state of stunned silence after the divine manifestation, though the message was received loud and clear. Later on, Peter and Akino tell Yuki about the legendary, belief-defying battles Lucy and Olympia once fought together. Yuki takes a moment to process everything. A world with a demon lord, magical beasts, and actual spirits walking among them. It's a true fantasy world in every sense, and Yuki decides that seeing his mother in action was the coolest thing yet. Yuki brings up the concept of mana, remembering how Sakura mentioned he had some too. Holding little Pochi, the boy wonders if actual magic exists in this new world. Peter and Akino look a bit surprised by the sudden question. Peter explains that what he's thinking of is usually called sorcery, noting Yuki didn't even know the basics like miasma sickness. He breaks down the science. Mana is just energy everyone has, and sorcery is the skill of turning it into fire or light through intense training. Akino adds that Tawano light grew into a major city thanks to spirit stones that produce a special material called Evanium. Essentially, the technology lets normal people create magic-like effects without needing years of training. Because of that, actual sorcerers are a dying breed, mostly sticking to the church or the monster hunting guilds. Yuki asks if it's possible for him to learn it too, prompting Peter to go into deep thought. The man admits it's possible with the right teacher, though Akino seems a bit worried about who he's thinking of. He mentions Lady Rilke, a legendary court sorcerer who once predicted the return of the Demon Lord. Yuki's eyes light up, immediately imagining some mystical elf lady from the stories. He and Akino get a bit too excited, forcing Peter to tell them to settle down before they spill their tea. Peter explains that their table was a gift from the sorcerer and has a very specific mechanism built in. Suddenly, a head pops right through the wood, sending the kids into a full-blown panic. The severed head just casually says hello, finding their terrified reactions pretty hilarious. Lady Rilke fully materializes out of the table, looking a lot younger and more eccentric than Yuki expected. Peter sighs and asks her not to give the kids a heart attack, but she just wanted to make a big first impression on the traveler. Yuki reaches out to poke her leg just to make sure she's actually real. She explains she's using magic to be both here and not here, then gets straight to the point about his lessons. Rilke is impressed by his vast mana and intellect, asking what exactly he wants to do with all that power. She decides he's worth the effort and asks if he's interested in a very specific type of sorcery. A complex magic circle glows on the floor as she begins a demonstration. With a flash, a bottle of soy sauce from Yuki's old life appears, leaving everyone in the room completely stunned. Rilke notes that the boy has a rare gift. His imagination is strong enough to literally pull things from his memories into reality. She warns him that his current dreams will be hard to reach, but offers to teach him the ways of sorcery to make them happen. The sorcerer tells him she'll be waiting for his answer while Yuki stares at his prize bottle of seasoning. A few days later, Yuki is heading back to the snowy mountains with Lucy and Pochi. It's his first time going home in 6 months, and he can't wait to see his family again. He thinks back to Rilke's invitation to visit her tower at the Royal Academy whenever he's ready. Peter had clarified that the place is a high-level magic school where he could truly master his craft. Before she left, Rilke suddenly remembered an errand and vanished in a puff of smoke, leaving Yuki more confused than ever. Back in the present, Lucy catches up after finishing some work and asks about the visitor. Yuki tells his master about the magic school offer, but he's a bit hesitant about jumping into something so big. Lucy keeps it simple, telling him to just do whatever he wants and use this trip home to clear his head. She reminds him that Olympia has been waiting a long time for his return, so they better pick up the pace. Yuki agrees, while Pochi barks about how much he's going to enjoy running around the mountains. The boy suddenly stops in his tracks, realizing he can actually understand exactly what the wolf is saying. Their trip is interrupted by a massive ice monster, and Lucy decides this is the perfect time for a surprise test. Yuki is a bit nervous about soloing a beast like this, but Pochi promises to step in if things get too hairy. The boy reflects on how much he's leveled up since he last faced an abnormal threat. With a sharp cry, he leaps into the air and delivers a powerful strike to the monster. Yuki stares at his sword in disbelief, realizing the monster was defeated much faster than he expected. Lucy gives him a thumbs up, impressed by the clean finish, while the boy wonders if the beast was just having an off day. He picks up the ice core, telling a curious Pochi that he wants to try a little experiment before destroying it. The group finally reaches their destination, a cozy cottage tucked away in the mountain greenery. The boy spots a familiar figure in the garden and shouts out for his mom. Olympia turns around and her eyes go wide with shock at the unexpected surprise. She practically teleports over to him, trapping the poor kid in a bone-crushing hug. The woman eventually lets go, apologizing for getting carried away, while Yuki gasps for air. The family shares a warm moment together in the yard, happy to be reunited. Yuki settles in and confirms he's officially back home. Over a nice hot meal, Olympia asks if town life has been treating him okay. He tells them about all the great people he's met, and pulls out some gifts he picked up in Tawano Light. The boy presents 2 handmade dolls, and his family is instantly charmed by the craftsmanship. He points out that the long-haired one is meant to be Olympia, while the other looks just like Lucy. Olympia is moved to tears by the thoughtful gesture, seeing it as proof of how much her son has matured. Yuki is a little confused by her crying, but elder brother just notes that children grow up faster than you'd think. The woman wipes her eyes and tells the boy that he's made her very happy. Yuki realizes that while they're proud, his family probably feels a bit lonely with him being away so much. He takes a moment to properly thank Olympia for taking him in and raising him with so much care. The hug and sincere thanks leave both the mother and elder brother feeling incredibly touched. Yuki and Pochi share their own little celebration, with the wolf barking about how happy he is too. Elder brother leans in and asks to hear all about the heroic adventures he's been having in the city. The boy has a million stories to tell, and he's excited to share every single one of them. The rest of the visit flies by as they enjoy some much-needed quality time together. Later, Yuki takes the monster core down to the water for his little experiment. He soaks it in the spring water, noting that it won't revive as long as it's kept away from the miasma. He figures the core should be perfectly safe now that it's been cleansed. Olympia looks a little sad, asking if he really has to head back so soon. Yuki explains that he wants to help restore the mountains, and that some people from the magic school might be looking for him. Elder brother gives a supportive nod, while Olympia tries to hide how much she'll miss him. The woman tells him she'll always be his biggest fan, and will be cheering him on with all her heart. The boy shouts his goodbyes and promises to see them again soon. Elder brother watches with a proud expression as Yuki starts his trek back to the city. Olympia tells him she'll always be waiting right there for him. Pochi transforms and offers the boy a ride back to the handyman shop. They blast off across the fields, with the wolf practically turning into a white blur. Yuki can barely believe how fast they're moving. The wind speed is so intense it's practically trying to peel his face off. They eventually make it back to the city and return to the shop where Peter is waiting. Peter tells him he has perfect timing because a very important guest from the Royal Academy has arrived. The boy walks into the room and is immediately hit with a radiant golden glow. A handsome young man in royal uniform introduces himself as Prince Christoph Mira Alberthia. Yuki's eyes go wide as he stares up at the regal figure, his brain short-circuiting at the realization that a real prince has just walked into his shop.